Here we are. Great. All right. So welcome, everybody. We are talking about unleashing intersectional data analysis today. I'm joined with Sahil. Both of us are product managers at Diversio, and we're super excited to show you all of the great work that the team, both product engineering, design, have been working on for the past 6 months now. We have a lot of really exciting features, a lot of beautiful design changes, and great increased usability for all of our wonderful users. And we're really looking forward to showing you both what you can do with it and how it looks. We're going to go through a couple of things today. We're going to start off with how you collect effective DEI data. We're going to jump into how you use that data to understand employee experience. We're going to show you the granular analysis capabilities as well as the intersectionality function of the platform. And then last, we'll get into DEI goal setting and tracking and how that can be customized to your organization. All right, I'll throw it over to you, Sahil, to get started.
Thank you, Courtney, for starting us off in a great way. To begin, we'll be talking about collecting effective DEI data as the first point and how this is the first pillar to stand up the rest of the process. So the Diversio process, this is where we're looking at right now, which is a three-tiered approach. As we can see, data is at the inception of this process, followed by a granular analysis and tailored solutions. This shows and emphasizes the point that getting the data right and complete is the first crucial step in making sure the analysis, the insights, and the solutions are correct and applicable to your goals. On the next slide, we'll be talking about the types of DEI data. And let's begin with the data we can see, which is the demographic data, the diversity data. This is the first point where we see the identification of gender, disability, sexual orientation, and more. When we look at the second type of data here, it's the inclusion data. And this is a very crucial piece because always at Diversio, we mentioned that this is the most important part, as this encompasses the true lived experiences of the demographics groups in the organization, as well as measuring the engagement we have with those demographic groups also. When we're aiming to reach our quantitative diversity goals, we want to assess our employee experiences through a qualitative lens on top of that. So looking at the types of data we have and how this is the first point in the process, we can choose our data collection approach. And when choosing our data collection approach, with our Diversio platform, there's multiple ways that you can collect or import this data for the analysis and the tailored solutions. The first is the flagship Diversio survey, which encompasses our short 5-minute survey, which is concise, yet still you're able to extrapolate the maximum experience from the employee as well. And it's a tool that we can deploy semi-annually, and we could host the assessments as well. The next is a combination of your own HRIS data and a previous or current Diversio survey. So you can fill in the new gaps by a simple sync or an import for a deeper analysis without the need to do a complete redeployment as a hybrid model we have. And the last piece here is the only method where you do not need to deploy data without the whole assessment. I just got that your internet connection is unstable, so I don't know if I broke up, but I hope everything is well there. On the next slide, what we can see is planning and deploying for the survey. And when we initiate a survey, when we deploy, we always know that this is a huge task, it's a huge lift to get the maximum participation, the maximum trust and openness from the employees. So there's a few best practices we have here, which the first one being is coming from the leadership team. When the communication starts, so the leadership team should reach out to all the employees, and they need to build trust. They need to have the content on the communication be as to why this assessment is happening, the importance of DEI, as well as privacy-focused communication and the actionable results that can be promised from the survey results here. The second is making sure we have constant communication to the employees, right? Making sure that we have a cadence structure of weekly or bi-weekly on reminding them about this. As our day-to-day lives at work, we can really forget about these priority items, and we need to re-emphasize being able to participate in here. And on top of that, we should attach an FAQ that addresses all the immediate concerns and questions about taking a D&I survey, which is sharing personal information. So being able to assure them that their participation is being respected in all different dimensions. And ideally, the survey results of the survey deployment length we have seen to be most effective at 2 to 3 weeks, as this shows to be the most concise period while maintaining a good cadence to our goals, while also extrapolating the most participation as well. And then after this, what we can talk about is the inclusive data best practices on the next slide. So what we can see here is best practices for making sure that the survey that we're deploying is as effective as possible. And the first one, again, is guaranteeing that anonymity, right? Making sure that you're either working with a third-party provider or directly with employees on the safeguards in place to make sure that there's nothing that they input, none of the data that they have is going to be leaked or being shown in any way. So aggregating this data, so there's no way to reverse engineer it. The second is making sure the survey is not so long, and survey fatigue can occur with these surveys. So not a 30-question survey, but a very short and concise survey, but is able to extrapolate and able to capture the full range of experience and demographic data from the employees. And the last piece here is adding the qualitative layer to the survey and being able to have a free text response option here for the user, for the employee, to be able to import their raw experience, right? Something that can't be measured on a granular measurable question, but an open free text table where they can be able to import, where they're able to put in their raw experience well across multiple dimensions. And what we can see here in the next slide is the Diversio process overview, is that really, like anything, the more you ingrain this process of trust and action from these DEI initiatives, the more successful they will be through increased employee participation, willingness, and openness with the feedback. And the next point here on the agenda will be understanding the employee experience. And so here what we'll be talking about is truly understanding what this employee experience really is and what this actually looks like. And so what is DEI data used for? DEI data is used for encompassing all the areas of employee well-being, including inclusion. Our methodology buckets inclusion into our validated framework of 5 KPIs, which is inclusive culture, career development, fair management, workplace flexibility, and workplace safety. Being able to see these dimensions allows us to see the contrast of strengths and weaknesses, making sure we're looking at changes over time and make proof we need to intervene and take next steps. Now, on the next slide, what we can see is why the importance of DEI is so important, especially the data aspect as well. When we're looking at here, we can see that data in DEI not that is needed. The source of truth for being able to see why these resources should be allocated in certain areas, or why these groups are definitely being impacted. We don't want to guessing game pain points through complete and correct data. On the next slide here, on the next slide. Courtney, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. What we can see is, oh, did I break up again? My apologies. What we can see here is that when we are able to extrapolate these insights, which our dashboard does automatically, we're able to have the complete data to have our backbone for the fundamentals and the evidence why these solutions or problems exist, and the insights to extrapolate and be able to tailor these solutions directly to your organization's goals is really important. Now I could hand it over to Courtney next to give us a demo on the other areas on the agenda.
Awesome. Thank you, Sahil. Oh, wait, I think you have one more.
Oh, my apologies. But when we focus on the D&I here to up-level the employees in the workplace, we see a full breadth and full parameters on what we're able to focus on, whether it's employee performance, being able to look at the pain points within our organization and see where the employees are performing well or where there need to be room for improvement, being able to retain and reduce attrition, right? Making sure that the employees, they're both feeling inclusive, equitable in the environment that we host for them, and being able to create a meaningful employee experience by understanding their qualitative feedback on these surveys, or using the HRIS integration to see where the gaps are in our diversity. And also look at the productivity, not only performance, but making sure that they're well resourced and they're well supported on their initiatives here as well. So now I think I can hand it over to Courtney properly.
Yes, wonderful. Thanks so much, Sahil. So we're going to jump in a little bit to what we do with this data and how we actually take a look at dissecting it on the platform itself. Just to recap a little bit, I apologize for the internet connection, and I hope that it remains solid for the rest of our presentation here. But we have two different types of data: diversity data, demographic pieces, and inclusion or experience data. So one is the demographic makeup of people, and one is how they're feeling, how they're interacting. Are they included at their company? Are they connected to it? And so combining these two pieces together, we really get a holistic view into the experience of each individual at a company. And what we're going to do is take a look at that granular analysis piece. So we're getting insights into the challenges that your organization specifically is facing and who specifically is facing those challenges. So I'm going to quickly switch over to the official platform here. Oh, bear with me for one moment. All right, here we go. So what you are seeing here is the new face of the Diversio platform. When you log in, you're going to be faced with this really welcoming screen that gives you a high-level snapshot of what is going on at your company. You'll see areas where things are going well. You'll see areas that you need to pay attention to, both from a diversity and inclusion perspective. You'll be able to take at a high level a look at your inclusion score. How have you progressed since you previously surveyed or ingested this information? How are you doing when you compare to the benchmarks that your industry is in? Additionally, you'll see a couple of other features on here, like our event reminders, the one that's going on right now on the side over there, as well as some of our blog articles that our wonderful marketing team works so hard on, and trending resources that other clients are using. As we go through this, you might notice a couple of things that look a little wonky to you. I encourage you to leave a comment if you see something weird, but I do want to just share with everyone that this is the first look at something huge that we've done, and there will be a little bit of bugs as we go through the rest of this. Majority of it will be fine, but brand new software, and we're really excited to show it to you. I'm going to jump over into our Analyze section, and we're going to start over in the diversity aspect here. So when you first click into diversity, what you'll see at a high level is your representation rates for your company, so that demographic data. You can adjust up here to looking at any of the aspects of data that you've collected, whether that's sexual orientation, gender, mind and body, which refers to mental health challenges, cognitive conditions, or physical disabilities that your employees are facing. And then additionally, any other demographic aspect that you're interested in. This company is interested in age, religion, and veteran status. We've had organizations add in things like the generation of their employees. They could add in, goodness, I don't know. You could really add in anything about somebody's demographic, education level, all sorts of things like that. When you hover over one of these aspects, you'll see both a industry, that finance piece, as well as Canada here, so that national average. This company is based in Canada, and they wanted to compare their representation to the census data from that country. If you're operating multinationally, you have the option to switch that over here, and those features will appear. And if you also are interested in additional benchmarking, you can click add another one and see how you compare both to a more broad industry and then a little bit more specific. We're going to focus in next on our intersectionality piece, and this is what happens when you hit create profiles. So we're going to go over here, and now you can take a look at the representation of any individual character or any combination of individual characteristics at your company. So what I've set up for us to take a look at is the representation of straight Asian women compared to straight Black women compared to straight white women. So here it's valuable to compare only just changing one aspect of the demographic of these women and focusing here on race. And so if we take a look, we're getting some really valuable information. There are 18.2% or 102 women, straight white women at this organization. There are 1.4% or 8 straight Black women at this organization, and 8.9% or 50 straight Asian women at this organization. And so this is a jumping off point. You can take a look at how this representation breaks down across multiple dimensions. This is overall representation, but if we go over here and we click into edit these profiles, you can also take a look at all of these different dimensions and layer them on top. So let's look at departments and add logistics, marketing, and retail. And so now we're looking at straight Asian women in the marketing, logistics, and retail departments. We'll hit submit. That will update slightly, and you'll see how the representation has dropped. And so now what we have is an interesting comparison. If you look at this, there's 8 women who meet this profile specifically, and that is comparable to the amount of Black women at this organization in totality. So this is just one example of the incredible depth that you can go to by playing with this profile intersectionality feature. You can add additional ones, compare up to 4 at a time, rename them so that your other users on the platform are able to see what you were striving for when you were creating these profiles. And ultimately just have access to insights on a very personal level. So you're not just taking a look at the representation of one characteristic at a time, you're seeing how these characteristics play into each other and really affect the demographic breakdown of your company. Next, we'll move over and give a brief look into what has changed with our inclusion aspect. So here you see our heat map that some of you might be familiar with. Some of you might be seeing this for the first time, but we've created different layers of focus for our platform now. We have our company's overall score and then their comparison to their benchmark, their primary benchmark of finance. And so what you see is that red highlighted square is an attention area. This company has the most areas for opportunity to improve in career development. Take a look at their other scores, see how they compare year over year, and see that this one over time has consistently been the lowest. This is a trend that's mirrored in the benchmark that they are being compared to as well, and is honestly mirrored in pretty much most organizations that we see, career development being that last key KPI here that companies strive for more towards the end of their DEI journey, with things like workplace safety, fair management, and inclusive culture being a little bit more foundational. Before we get into the more specific target groups that we have up here, which will mirror the types of profiles that we just looked at, we're going to take a look at that other category of data that Sahil was mentioning earlier, and that is the employee free text. So we have this box here at the bottom that gives you the responses of people who are answering this question. What could your employer do better to support inclusion and belonging at your workplace? So these are just the answers from the folks at the company. Can continue to load more. And what you'll notice here on the side is that it's pulling out which KPI or pain point these comments are talking about. So we see the one here, more women in executive level positions. This is going to be talking about that leadership diversity, which feeds into recruiting and hiring. If you're seeing somebody talk about how they're missing a specific demographic representation in their leadership, you're also paying attention to, okay, is this demographic being hired into the company enough? And that's where the value of that intersectionality analysis comes in, because you can go back to the screen we were on before, take a look at people's profiles, build up all of the different women in the leadership position, and take a look at how their representation compares to the men in the leadership positions. Up here, you'll see a bunch of different pain points that are really, they're coming up from our natural language processor reading these comments and deciding, okay, these people are feeling that they don't have enough support when it comes to remote work, time off, they're dealing with toxic leadership, pay equity issues, perhaps mentorship or career development. But we're going to click into up here, looking at inclusive culture. So now we're focusing on each of these pain points by KPI. You see that they'll change slightly and tell you what goes in to each of these elements. And then when you pop this open, you'll see it as it relates to those pain points and the KPI, and as well as the group that's most impacted. So you're getting an idea of the demographics of the person who's responding to this question. So this is most likely somebody who is not part of the dominant group at the company. They're not the most prevalent demographics at that executive level. And race and ethnicity category are non-dominant races. Our least represented folks at the company are the ones who are expressing the most opportunity areas when it comes to workplace flexibility. We also have the ability to do the same thing in multiple languages, as you'll see here. This company also has, as is common for our Canadian clients, a lot of French-speaking folks. So just jump over one last thing here and show you what the heat map looks like on a broader scale. We have a view that folks might be a little familiar with, but has some exciting new upgrades to it. If you've ever worked with us before, seen a presentation that we've done, you are familiar with that dominant group identifier, which is basically the characteristics that are the most prevalent at that executive level. Typically with our clients, we're seeing the white heterosexual man without a disability. And then those demographics carry through the rest of the company. So anyone who fits that profile is part of the dominant group. And the results you're seeing for their inclusion scores are anyone who does not fit that profile. So anyone who is in the non-dominant characteristics for disability, you see their scores, same for gender, sexual orientation, and race. You can assess this in the way that we had previously with just a little bit more insight. If you click on one of the pain points here that's highlighted, or not highlighted, those will work as well. But I want to focus in on the highlighted area. You can take a look at a little bit more detail on what is happening within this career development question. So the survey question that all of these employees answered is there someone in a position of influence in your company invested in your growth and development? You can take a look at what that's measuring specifically, what your score is, how it compares to the benchmark, and then directly from here, we can move into that goal setting aspect. So what goal are we interested in setting based off of this data that we're taking a look at? Are there any programs that we want to explore that could support career development for these people? Any tools that we can implement immediately that's going to make this KPI go up for next time and ultimately create a more inclusive environment when it comes to career development? All right, so that is at a high level some of the new and exciting things that have come to Diversio from a feature perspective. I do want to just give a quick shout out to our really hardworking team. This is a beautiful upgrade, and we're really excited for everyone to get their hands on it and to really get a much better user experience when it comes to data analysis and unlock even more things about what challenges are facing their company, as well as what areas they have to celebrate. I think that's an important thing that we often miss when we're doing DEI work is there's both, there's positive and negative, and the platform is doing a pretty good job of showing you where to keep up the good work as well as where to focus in with a little bit more effort. Right. So unless Sahil, you have anything you'd like to add, I'll jump into goal setting and what we do next.
I'm nothing to add. That was amazing. And I'm always so excited to see our platform in action.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so we have all of this information, we have all of this data. What do we do with it? We move into the third aspect of these three pillars here of the Diversio process, and we're coming up to those tailored solutions. So we have this analysis, we have some insights that have been generated from this analysis, and we have our own idea of where we want to focus our efforts. And next, we're going to move into the two parts that the platform offers. So we have this path to improvement. We're going to address the insights from the pain points. We're going to set goals around them, and then we're going to implement programs to actually promote change at the company and drive these goals and these efforts forward. So when we're addressing insights from the pain points, we're going to look at a combination of our own analysis plus what the product itself is recommending for focus areas. We prioritize these two, add in a little bit about what our goals are. Maybe we have some executive goals. Maybe we have, mandates from our board. Maybe we have, some sort of public influence that's driving us towards specific aspects of DEI. Combining all of these together and creating that focus area of our insights. We do want to add one little part in here. If when you're going through this process, you discover workplace safety or harassment issues as a company, we always recommend putting your focus there first, as it's really difficult to focus on any other aspects of DEI when you have a harassment or safety issue. Moving on to goals, we have these insights. We know which area of our DEI strategy we want to focus on. Now we're going to write it down. We're going to create action behind it. We can set goals that include a timeline as well as a KPI to focus on, and then which group we want to put most of our support behind. So the insights that you'll get from the Diversio platform highlight both a KPI and a demographic group to focus on. Here, this company wants to focus on improving workplace safety for folks with disabilities, and they've set a quantitative goal of bringing that score from a 6.7 to an 8.0. So this allows you to come back to this over time and make sure that, okay, we set this goal a couple of months ago. How are we doing? What have we done as a company to move this goal forward? And when we resurvey, do we expect that we're going to see this goal met, or do we think we still have more work to do? And in order to fully realize these goals, we have to implement the programs and policies, resources, tools, give ourselves the ability to actually drive forward this change. So the platform does a couple of things for you in this case. It's going to take these insights, this goal setting effort that you've gone through, and then it's going to recommend the most effective programs for you to actually meet these goals. So you'll see when you go through this whole process, the third step is going to be recommendations. It's going to order them in the priority level or the impact level that somebody could hope to expect from interacting with this KPI goal setting area. And so you'll see, okay, if we're having a workplace safety issue, here are the top 3 recommended policies for us to implement. You're able to save those policies to the platform itself, and then access them all in one place, take a look at them over time, come back to these goals, make sure that you're actually actioning these resources, and then you're able to take a look at it all at once. You can see, okay, here's our goals, here's the programs we're doing, and then upon resurveying, see, okay, this worked. We can, check this off and come back and set another even more challenging goal for next time. So at a high level, that's what we've gone over today, how we measure, how we collect that data, how we're tracking it and analyzing it over time, and then what we're doing to improve those scores and create a more inclusive environment for our entire company. So now we're going to open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing so you can take a look at our faces again. Take a look at if there was anything in the chat. Doesn't look like it. Q&A. Nothing at the moment. But if anyone has additional questions, maybe I'll tag on to that survey participation rate question that I see somebody had a few minutes ago. So we do see that 85% completion rate, and that really does speak to the data collection process that Sahil was talking about at the beginning here. The more engaged, transparent, and communicative leaders are when they're going through this process, the higher that rate can be. We've even seen as high, I want to say as high as 90% from companies who really, really double down on explaining why they're doing it. And then they have built their trust with their employees as well. Each time they return to the survey, they see a higher and higher participation rate because they have gone through the whole process. They've set goals, they've met those goals, and they've earned the trust of their company that they're really focused on improving DEI at the organization.
Definitely. I've seen as high as 95% actually with one of our clients. So it's it was a great success, but it was definitely encompassing all the values and best practices.
And just to jump on Lizelle gave a fantastic answer to what legally requesting this information is about. She's exactly right. GDPR compliant. We follow the privacy and data laws for any country that we're working in. I do want to add, though, that the data collection process is completely anonymous. So while we're collecting information about the characteristics of your employees, we're never collecting anything that actually ties back to their identity. This helps in a couple of ways. One, it helps us be compliant all across the world, because if you're not connecting this data to the individual, it really supports the privacy of these people. And then the platform, which we might not have been able to see very clearly because this company has a very large population base that took the survey, is we have an anonymity threshold of 8. So anytime you're taking a look at a demographic group, or you're doing that intersectional analysis or looking at inclusion scores, you're never going to see a combination of people that is fewer than 8 respondents. And that's to protect their anonymity, protect their privacy, and make sure that nobody can reverse engineer that data. Oh, we're getting some good questions now. Can you speak about the integration of the tool with HRIS systems? How does that work while maintaining anonymity for individual employees? It's a fantastic question. SP, would you like to answer, or would you like me to go ahead?
Yeah, no, so for the HRIS integration, there are multiple safeguards we can have in place. It's really customizable to whether the needs are of the client, and also whether we want to handle it, because we can still do the minimum threshold to do that safeguard if we would like. But also what we can do is just aggregate the information in ways where you can't reverse engineer single data points, to be able to really show you overall insights and trends, while also maintaining the individual data points that are coming in. Because there's a way to incorporate the data and then separate the pieces out to give you a broader picture without having them being tied or stringed into singular points. So there's multiple ways that we can do it. HRIS is a very powerful integration methodology, and there's a lot of intersections that we can make throughout that process to make sure anonymity is preserved.
Yeah, and just to add on there, we have a couple of approaches depending on the comfort level of the company or the region that they're operating within. We have a double-blind approach where we're doing an anonymous employee ID that the company assigns to people that we actually never see. We have a different one. There's a translation. No one really knows who's who. But the other aspect of an HRIS integration is that we're never collecting, we're not even pulling this information from the platform to begin with, anyone's name. There's no birth date. There's no people fill out a lot of different things in their HRIS. It varies pretty widely from company to company, but anything that is specifically personally identifying to you and is singular to you as a person would never be collected. No names, no date of births, no personal addresses or anything like that. All right, our next question here is, does the Diversio platform also support data capture and goal setting around equity? The short answer to that one is not yet, but check back with us for our next webinar in a couple of months. One of the most exciting things that we're working on after this great launch here is an equity analysis component. So we'll have diversity, inclusion, and equity, and we'll be taking a look in a very similar way to the deep dive that you saw for diversity and inclusion into things like pay equity, promotion equity, and attrition equity. Just to start. In the future, we'll have even more aspects of that. Wonderful. Any additional questions?
I think that's about it from what I see also.
Great. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Feel free to reach out to either myself or Sahil or anyone on our marketing team, sales team, if you have any additional questions. The recording for this will be up on a couple of places and will be emailed out to all who attended shortly after the meeting, if not later this week. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you all.